In chapters 2, 3, and 4, you'll be learning procedures that will allow you to organize your data descriptively. The first set of procedures you will learn is how to organize your data into a table or a graph. We will cover how to create a frequency distribution table first. The most simple version of a frequency distribution table contains two columns. In the first column, the X column, you list all of the score values that were available or chosen by your subjects. Sometimes the X column values are called categories. In the second column, and we label that the F or frequency column, you list how many times each score was chosen or earned. If it's useful to do so, you can supplement the two columns, the X column and the F column, with additional information where you compute the proportion or percentage of the total that each frequency listed represents. The formulas that you use to compute proportions or percentages are listed on the slide. This table gives you an example of a frequency distribution table with those two supplementary columns added in. As you can see, the first column, the X column, lists in descending order all the score values your subjects could have earned or chosen. So say this represents a 5-point quiz, and you are creating a frequency distribution table that summarizes and presents how many students earned each available score. Based on this table, one student earned a perfect score of 5, 2 students earned a score of 4, 3 students earned a score of 3, 3 students earned a score of 2, and 1 student earned a score of 1. The P, or proportion column, shows you in decimal point format what proportion out of the total number of scores each frequency represents. In the last column, that information is translated into percentages. Percentages are more easily understood sometimes. So the way we read this is that 10% of students earned a score value of 5, 20% of students earned a score value of 4, and so forth. The value of organizing your scores into a frequency distribution table is that you can begin to see the shape of the distribution. In other words, where most of the scores occurred or clustered. In this distribution, more students earn scores of 3 or 2. Here's another example of a frequency distribution table. When you are organizing your data into a frequency distribution table, the convention is that you organize the scores in the X column from largest to smallest, as is shown in the table on the slide. If data is organized from raw scores into a table, you can quickly determine what your N is by adding up the numbers in the frequency F column. If you need to calculate the sum of X, there are two ways you can go about it, which are outlined on the slide. You can either deconstruct the table and line out or list out all the score values in the X column in a column or a row, making sure to list out how many of each X value you have. For example, 10, 9, 9, 8, 8, 8, 8, there are no 7s, and 6, which is the data on the table on the slide. When you sum those numbers up, you get 66. The other way to compute sum of X is to multiply each X value by how many times it was chosen or earned, as is shown in the table on the slide, creating a third column. Once you've multiplied each X value by its frequency and created that column, you sum that up. Thus 10, 18, 32, and 6 add up to 66. The most important thing to remember is that you cannot just add up the values in the X column without factoring in how many times that score occurred.